Our next speaker, Kudzai Hwengwere, is a master's student at Anglia Ruskin University. Her master's is in Applied Bioscience, collaborating with the British Antarctic Survey.
Good afternoon. My name is Kudzai Hwengwere, and I am a master's student at Anglia Ruskin University. Today, I'm going to present a talk on my project with the British Antarctic Survey and Anglia Ruskin University, looking at antibiotic resistance in Antarctica. Man has been exploring Antarctica for centuries, but has only been building bases for people to stay in since the early 19th century. The first stations were whaling stations, but on subantarctic islands. The first base on the continent itself was built as part of a wartime operation, Operation Tabarine. This led to the first base being opened in 1946. Now, since then, there have been huge increases in occupation, particularly in coastal regions. It is worth mentioning that although the visitation has increased, our understanding of waste management systems now is much better than that of early settlers. Moving on to the issue of antimicrobial resistance. Antimicrobial resistance is often described as a global health emergency. Why is that? Well, according to the World Health Organization, if we don't do anything about it, it will lead to 10 million lives being lost every year by 2050. It will cost the economy hundreds and thousands of dollars. So it is a really serious issue. And the World Health Organization has given some recommendations on how we can tackle this massive problem. And the one that is particularly relevant to my talk today is knowledge through surveillance and research. So Antarctica is a very isolated environment. There is limited detection of AMR, limited human activity in discrete places, but high levels of animal wildlife. This makes Antarctica a very suitable model system for studying the spread of AMR and also looking at the role of animals as vectors of AMR. There have been a few isolated studies of AMR, but no systematic survey. And that's exactly what we want to do. And as mentioned, this is a recommendation by the World Health Organization. Surveillance is a recommendation by the World Health Organization of how we can tackle AMR. So our plan is to look at AMR in wildlife. A good example is on St. Andrews Bay, there is about 120,000 breeding pairs of penguins. The odd human is unlikely to change the bacterial flora in the water, but it is interesting to find out if or how AMR would spread in such an environment. We will also look at marine invertebrates, particularly in areas where there is sewage discharge. We will check for AMR in places nearer and further away from human activity. Most of this will be based at the UK research bases Sydney and Rothera. These two have interesting differences. Sydney was built earlier in 1946, whereas Rothera in 1975. Sydney is a summer-only research base with about 8 to 10 scientists each summer. Rothera is both summer and winter. During summer, there's about 100 staff. At the moment, there's 180 because of building operations. During winter, only 22. There is a high number of animals on Sydney, and there's a picture of it actually on the left-hand side, whereas Rothera has fewer numbers of animals. However, at Rothera, there is a dive team which will allow us to get some marine invertebrate samples. The first phase of my project has been optimizing culturing methods. Very interestingly, some bacteria do grow at 35 degrees Celsius, some at 25, but the great majority, in order to get a greater diversity, it is best to grow them at 4 degrees Celsius. Of course, this takes time and about a month before getting some growth. And what have I found? I have found all kinds of weird and wonderful bacteria. Preliminary sequencing results have shown matches to psychrophilic bacteria, and we're going on to test for antibiotic resistance in these bacteria. Due to limited lab access because of the COVID-19 pandemic, these are our first results. But our next steps will look at extracting DNA from animal scat samples from Cygni, as well as sediment samples from Rothera, barcoding them to see what kind of bacteria are in them, as well as the kind of AMR that are in them. Finally, I would just like to thank my supervisors, Dr. Kerry Walker from Anglia Ruskin University and Professor Melody Clark from the British Antarctic Survey for all of their support. And I'd love to thank you all for listening. Goodbye.
All right, thanks to Kudzai.